Welcome to another episode of One on One with Mitch Lafon. Joining me this week, current Alice Cooper guitarist Ryan Roxie. You can find out more about Ryan at roxie77.com. Also, ryanroxie.com. He does his rock and roll parking lot before every Alice Cooper show. He's also got the Roxie box, a box set collection of all his greatest work, solo work, and independent work. On the other side of the Ryan interview, I've got a former guitarist for the Alice Cooper Band, VINNIE Moore. VINNIE has a new album called Aerial Visions out October 23rd. You can check that out online at vinniemore.com and also over at Pledge Music. But let's get started with the current guitarist for Alice Cooper, on the road opening for Motley Crue these days on their Everything Must Come to an End tour, or All Bad Things Must Come to an End tour. I've seen the show twice this year, and it is phenomenal. Alice Cooper, to me, in my opinion, steals the show each and every night. But that's not any disrespect to Motley Crue, who put on a kick-ass show with just so many visuals and lighting effects and all kinds of other great stuff. So here we are. Let's listen to Ryan Roxie. We are speaking with Ryan Roxie of the Alice Cooper Group, but even more importantly, of the Electric Angels. That album, Ryan, and first of all, hello.
Hey, how's it going, man?
But I get so excited when it's going well. I get so excited when I talk about that Electric Angels album back from 90, was it?
It was 1989, 1990, yes.
Uh, that was one of those overlooked albums. Absolutely fantastic. I guess I'll just start there, and then we'll get back to Alice Cooper, because listen.
Well, I appreciate you being there from, basically the beginning. There was a couple bands that I was in before, and the band that kind of started the Electric Angels era was a band called Candy,
Right.
which happened to have Gilby Clarke of Guns N' Roses in
Yes.
it. And that later became Kill for Thrills and Electric Angels. So those two bands were spawned out of Candy, and I appreciate you being around for the ride this long.
You'll be
Can't
happy.
believe you're still here, Mitch. We're all still here.
We're all still here, and I'll be happy to let you know. First of all, Electric Angels, there was a record store in Montreal. Remember those record stores?
Yeah.
I would go in all the time, and I would buy, Guns N' Roses and Bon Jovi and Alice Cooper and all this. And the guy said, "I have a band that you're gonna love. I swear to God." And it's Electric Angels. And I said, "All right." Back then you couldn't stream. You had to spend the $15, and so it was like taking a chance. And I brought it home, and it was fantastic. And then I did track down the Candy and the Kills for Thrills CD, which I found one copy in Belgium. I was on vacation, and my goal was to go into every record store, and I had a list of albums that I could not buy, and I would go, and in Belgium I walk in and I go, "Oh my God, they've got the Kills for Thrills. My 10-year quest is over." So there you go. So
it was next to like a Monk beer and a chocolate bar, and
yeah,
it was like
it was
well, the thing I like and that I really appreciate about Electric Angels is that the people that did support that record and discovered that record are still fans of it. And I'm very proud of that record. It was my first legitimate major label album that I ever did. And the producer was the iconic Tony Visconti, who had produced some of my favorite bands, which were T-Rex. He worked with David Bowie, and of course he worked with the Beatles as well, and Paul McCartney.
Yeah, and Tony's great. So let's move away from the Electric Angels. And by the way, do you still keep in touch with Jonathan Daniels? Because he now has Crush Management, or Crutch Music, right?
Yeah. I actually do, and it's this week. Coincidentally enough, I've talked more about Jonathan Daniels than I've talked about myself. It seems. I did an interview in Texas just a couple of days ago where they spoke of, "Hey, well, would you ever do a possible reunion with Electric Angels?" And I said, "Well, sure, I'm in. I'm all in, but you'll have to check with Jonathan Daniels' schedule because he is a mogul now." And we laughed about it because all the things that Jonathan and I used to talk about in the tour van that Electric Angels had in the front. We called it front seat theories. We talk about how the music business could be changed if we just did this or just did that. And a lot of those philosophies, a lot of those ideas, he put into these bands that he started managing, and it really worked. So I'm glad to see that it's paid off great dividends for him, and that the spirit of rock and roll, was able to transcend to a new generation, from our band to these new bands that came up, and hopefully to the next.
Yeah, and for folks that don't know Crush Music, they've got Train, Weezer, Sia, who of course does stuff for Lady Gaga and stuff like that. So just a great little, I don't want to call it a label, a little management company that he's put together.
And I wouldn't call it little either.
Yeah.
It's pretty damn big.
Right, that sounds a little dismissive, but it's not. It's complimentary. So good for him. Great vocalist. But Alice Cooper, the latest thing in the news is you were down in Dallas the other day, and there's a book signing going on for Dennis Dunaway's new book, Snakes, Guillotines, Electric Chairs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the band shows up. The rest of the guys, Neil and, of course, Alice. And
all the surviving members. Michael Bruce,
right.
Neil Smith, Dennis Dunaway. And unfortunately, Glenn Blexton passed away years ago. So there was sort of a missing spot that needed to be filled, and luckily enough, or sort of like graciously enough is a better word for it, I was asked if I could come down and jam a few songs with those guys.
Yeah, and so how was that? I mean, playing the Cooper songs night after night, and you've done it for what, 20 years or so about now?
Off and on, yeah. I think I know them by now. Yeah, pretty much.
But when you're playing them with the current lineup, which is fantastic, by the way. I saw 2 shows in August, and it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
But there is something different about the original guys. They have a different timing, a different signature, a different everything. Just how was that for you?
That was like listening to a record, and how I originally learned the songs. These guys played the way they did when they recorded the song, and there was a certain energy. In fact, even Alice's vocals took on a different
timbre,
energy, and it's a different sort of vibe because he was with these guys. The way that Dennis Dunaway, great bass player, the way his parts sort of blend together with Neil Smith and his drumming style. If you listen to them by themselves, they might seem a little bit. Wait, that doesn't fit. How's that going to fit into the song? But then it seamlessly goes together, and it was kind of just a really cool experience to be the guy in the back playing, those songs and watching this all go down.
Nerves at all? Did you look up to these guys and go, oh boy, this is it's sort of like if you were to join Kiss for a day and you had Gene, Paul, and Ace there or something, right? It's a bit.
My Beatles you must know this for people that have ever followed me or listened to any of my music. They know that my sort of Beatles would be Cheap Trick. So it would be like being in Cheap Trick for a day and stuff like that. And it was the equivalent sort of energy. I've been able to jam, some Cheap Trick songs with Rick Nielsen backstage, just me and him. In fact, that happened last year. We actually went. It wasn't a Cheap Trick song. It was one they covered, but California Man, and we jammed that one together. If you know the original version,
from the Moves, Roy Wood and the Moves.
There you go. I like it. I knew I couldn't trump you. I knew that I couldn't.
Not on Cheap Trick. Not on Cheap Trick. In fact, my memory is that I gave you that Sharpie, that Cheap Trick Sharpie, about 15 years ago. Remember that one?
That was you?
That was me. The Cheap Trick Sharpie.
No, that was great. Thank you.
You know what?
I do remember it.
Let me mention, since we're talking Cheap Trick, the Alice Cooper group that just played in Dallas with you, it was the first time since the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction that they had played together as that lineup. This year, Cheap Trick is nominated. Do you believe that they belong in there? And if so, why?
I absolutely think they do belong there because they have brought something to the rock and roll landscape that was needed. They took a lot of the elements of, possibly the greatest band of all time, the Beatles, and I wouldn't say modernized it, but gave it a rough edge, which, you know, they kept the pop sensibilities of what the Beatles had, but they put some, you know, heavy guitars and that voice of Robin Zander, and they brought something to the rock and roll landscape that influenced so many bands. I got to be really honest with you. If there wasn't Cheap Trick, I wouldn't have, had the same writing style that I have. And I'll go so far as to say if there wasn't Cheap Trick, there wouldn't be other great bands that, just to name a few, Foo Fighters for one. Think of bands that have a heavy sound but pop sensibilities. Nirvana to a sense, because if you listen to Nevermind, in fact, I think Kurt Cobain even said it one time. He said, Nevermind's just a Cheap Trick record on overdrive speed.
Right. And of course, Smashing Pumpkins and all that. I mean, they've had an incredibly huge influence, and it's sort of tragic that they've been completely and utterly overlooked, right?
Well, I don't know if they've been overlooked, because here's the bottom line. Everybody knows who those guys are, especially in the music business. So you have that sort of respect amongst your peers. And like we were talking before the interview, if you're truly at that point where you don't care what other people think, because like I said, a lot of people say it, but not a lot of people really believe that. I think Cheap Trick's in a perfect position to take the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame by storm, and when they do it, it should definitely be the original members, all of them.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I don't think Cheap Trick's going to give that kind of nasty attitude. I actually think that they'll bring Bunny back, John Brandt, Pete Comita, and just have all of them and do one song where it's all the guys who had their 5 minutes in the band kind of thing. I just don't see them as being that.
Cool, and I should be able to tag along because I know all those songs. I think I've played Cheap Trick songs close to the amount of times they have as well.
So let's talk about you. The one thing that I've always noticed about you is your willingness to be in touch with the fan and the fan base. You had Roxie's blog. You were the first one who ever spoke to me about podcasting, and literally we're talking 2005, 2003, and I mean 10 years ago, before when Apple had put it on as some kind of weird thing. You've always wanted to communicate, and now at the shows, before Alice plays, you go out there in the mob and you sign and take pictures. And I mean, most people.
It's called the Rock and Roll Parking Lot, and I think it's important for both sides to realize that it helps each of us. I hope it does, because what it does for me is I'm like a rock and roll vampire. I'm feeding off the energy of the people that come to see us. And if I was just to stay backstage, it's not that it's not, it's fine backstage. It's very quiet. It's not what you think it would be. It's not the 80s. It's not the 70s. It's it's kind of business as usual. People getting ready, but more on a business-like level. It's not like it is out in front of stage where people are getting excited. They're getting ready for the show. They're anticipating something to happen. So Nita and I, it's mostly Nita and I. Sometimes Tommy comes out there as well, and sometimes the whole band. Glenn Sobel, our drummer, and Chuck Garrick, our bass player, and Tommy Hendrickson. We all have been out there from time to time. For most part, it's Nita Strauss and myself go out there and take pictures. I bring my Gibson Les Paul out there usually, have a chance to talk with the fans. If they have questions about our equipment, if they have questions about, our scarves that we're wearing, whatever, no topic is off the table. And we just get this energy and see what the sort of vibe of the crowd is going to be like. And, we do it for a short time. We don't charge anything for it. We just get a vibe. go backstage and, are pumped up with energy and hopefully go do a good show.
Yeah, and I saw it in action. I saw two shows, like I said, Montreal and Ottawa, and I didn't see what happened in Montreal. I was busy doing a whole bunch of million things. But in Ottawa, I saw it, and there is a uniqueness. And I watched from a distance. You see this kid that's there with his dad, who's been an Alice Cooper fan or a Motley Crue fan for 35 years, and that little kid walks up. He's 8, 9, and you see a gleam in his eye. You see the uh, I mean, that's must be part of the reason, right? To try to awaken a spark, or just say, "Hey, you got to
Man,
mean it."
my mission is completed, and my sort of, what I want the Rock and Roll Parking Lot to accomplish. I feel so much satisfaction when I and see that look in one of those kids' eyes that says, he looks up and he says, "Man, I could do what this guy's doing, and I want to do what this guy's doing." And he just sort of showed me or inspired me that it's possible. And that's the cool thing about this, I guess you could say, classic rock genre now, that yes, there's a lot of parents coming to the shows. They're bringing their kids who are at that age where very impressionable and very much looking for something, to inspire them. And I don't know if that's happened before. I mean, can you imagine going to some of your parents' music? I can't imagine going to my parents' music and going to a sock hop or, whatever kind of dance it was, and going, yeah, this could be like the first sort of generations where the kids are listening to their parents' record collection and saying, hey, that doesn't suck. That's pretty cool.
You see, I couldn't have, because they were listening to Mozart and Beethoven, and they were dead, right? So I could no, but it is a unique thing, because you see it more and more at Alice Cooper shows, at Kiss shows, at Bon Jovi shows. You see
3 generations.
Yeah.
I'm saying on this Motley Crue Alice Cooper run, I've seen 3 generations come to the same show, and that just blows our mind away. But then again, I go, you know what? It doesn't surprise me, because at the end of the day, there's something for everybody at an Alice Cooper show. You can. It is almost, I hate to say it, vaudeville. There's a little bit of that theater, campy vaudeville aspect to it, but then there's the big rock show part of it, with a lot of the props that we have, and the lights and the pyro, and the most important thing, I hope, that everybody agrees on, whether it's a kid or an adult or a grandparent, is that the songs are there. And Alice Cooper Band wrote the songs that have allowed us to play for so many years now.
Yeah, and it truly is a fantastic show. Now, we haven't spoken too much about you, so let's get into that.
Yeah, more about me.
Yeah, me, I. Now, you've done different things. Roxy 77, Dad's Porno Mag, the stuff with Alice Cooper, Electric Angels, so on and so on and so on. Casablanca out of Sweden.
Yep.
Where are you in terms of you musically? Are you just the Alice Cooper guy now, or is there more Ryan solo stuff? And if so, under what name? Is it back to Casablanca? Is it just Roxy 77? Or you just don't know at this point?
No, I have a pretty clear idea of where I'm at, my identity. I know that a lot of people recognize me from Alice Cooper, and like I say, I plan. He's my priority. He's my boss, and I think everybody in the band feels that way. That we want to ride. We want to ride this one into the sunset, because he's such an iconic rock figure, and that's bringing it at such a high level that we want to be part of that for as long as we can. As long as Alice chooses to tour, we would love to be that band that backs him up. I know that. That being said, we all, everybody in the band has their own individual projects going on. It doesn't mean that we would. It's the Alice Cooper show comes first. obviously, but Roxy 77, which is my own solo project, I mean, I will never stop writing songs for that. That's my outlet, that's my release. That's where, a lot of my own personality, if you want to find out about my personality, is shown. It's my therapy, if you will. And the band that I have put together in Sweden, I'm really happy with the musicians in it. I've been friends with these guys for years now. My friend Magnus on bass and Eric on guitar and Anton on drums. These guys are just great musicians and a real pleasure to play with. And I think the last album slash EP that we put out was a good representation of what of the direction of where we're going.
Yeah, and in fact, if people really want to get into the whole thing, I would suggest the Roxie box, that 4 CD box set that just had a bit of everything. That was great. I mean, there's no other word for it. It was great.
Thank you very much, Mitch. I appreciate it. I mean, that is something that, if you want to just go check out all the sort of twists and turns of my own solo stuff and the bands that I've been a part of that pretty much revolve around the Roxy songs, then the Roxy box is a good choice for that. There is stuff in the works for coming up for more Roxy music coming out, and that will be in 2016. But like I said, it's everything at this point does work around the Alice Cooper band, because like I said, he's that boss that you kind of love to work for, and you want to see him succeed. And we've let's face it, we've been able to ride a pretty good wave for a pretty long time.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that too. In 2006, you stepped away from the Alice Cooper box, and I'm sure you must have had a friend or two that must have said, "Oh, this is career suicide. You can't just walk away. Everything's gonna fall."
I had friends. They're not so much friends, but I had people that came up to me and said it was career suicide in 1996 when I joined.
right, exactly. But I mean,
how funny is that? And here's the bottom line. I mean, you can never tell how you're going to make your mark in whatever business you choose unless you at least try it.
Right.
You never tell where that path is going to take you. And if I would have just, listened to people saying, well, what is out in 1996? What is out? How many years is Alice going to really tour? Well, guess what? Since 1996, Alice Cooper hasn't missed a year of touring. So I would say even the betting odds would be against that, I would think.
And he has a plan, right? It's like 100 shows per year, no more, no less kind of thing. I mean, roughly, right?
I think Alice Cooper's biggest plan is to tour 5 more shows than Mick Jagger. Once he beats Mick Jagger by a healthy margin, then I think it'll be, no one's going to touch him at that point.
But when you made that decision, how much of it was a struggle? Because I mean, you went off and you went to Sweden, you changed countries, wife and kids, the whole thing. Was it a very hard decision, or was it like, no, the wife and kids comes first? There's no. It's
very easy to say, well, I didn't think about it, but of course you think about it, because you think, and there's things that you're going to miss about touring. It was very hard to like be sitting in Sweden, unpacking things in a new apartment that I had just moved in. While I listened to commercials on the radio for the Alice Cooper band coming to Sweden Rock Festival, which is Sweden's biggest music festival, and I wasn't going to be a part of it. Of course, that was, a little bit weird for me to listen to. But at the end of the day, when you do things for the right reasons, they have a way of working out. And the right reasons for me, and when I made that decision, was I really did want to see what it was like for my kids to grow up and be there and be more present than I had been.
Right.
And I was able to spend, a lot of good times and got to see them grow up in front of my eyes instead of in front of a video screen, which I'm saying, look, if you have the opportunity, that's great. Some people don't have the opportunity, and I wouldn't ever judge anyone that had a job that involves travel, not seeing their kids as much. It is what it is. But I had that opportunity. I took that opportunity, and luckily enough for me, I got that second chance to come back and tour with Alice when the opportunity arose again. And
so talk to me about that decision to come back. I mean, he had Damon Johnson, who did a great job now in what is it, Black Star Riders, and
yeah.
of course Jason Hook, who went on with Five Finger Death Punch. He had some great guys in there, and
well, Alice has always kept a really high caliber team of guitar players that have come in. If you look through it historically, I mean, even Steve Hunter and Dick Wagner, and the original band as well, and it's so there's been such a high quality of players. I happen to be that guy that hopefully was in the back of Alice's head, saying that, hey, if the opportunity arises again, let's call Roxie. And what had happened was that Steve Hunter decided that he was going to step away and do his own stuff, and so there became a vacancy in that position. And I kind of just positive thinking sort of willed it to happen.
Well, I think the fans had a lot to do with it, because being one of them, I read interviews and I saw them, and they say, and I saw on Facebook and on internet, when is Ryan coming back? When is Ryan coming back? There was a great love for what you had done with Alice.
Well, there's love is right back to them. Right back to everyone that's ever supported me in this thing, because it's true. I was ready, and I wanted to come back, and I did. Trust me, I remember there being a lot of support in those years that helped me through fans, through Roxie supporters that had said, look, if chance comes, we're gonna make our voice heard to have you back whenever possible. So I thank them. Definitely.
When you came back, was it with the understanding that, okay, this is yours as long as possible, or was it, all right, we'll fill the hole and we'll see if we can get somebody else to replace Steve, and then?
I think with anything with Alice, you just, if the vibe is right and the chemistry is working, why mess with it? And this lineup has had. I guess the only real change we've had since 2012 has been the switch from Orianthi, who went on to record, has been recording with Richie Sambora, and so they've gone on doing their album. We brought in Nita Strauss. So that's been the only personnel change, and Nita's been a great addition to the band. She is such a great band member. And such a great player to play off of. We have two different styles of playing, yet I think they, in the context of Alice Cooper, it really blends nicely. Because Alice has a lot of different textures to his music. He can be appealing to shredders. He can be appealing to classic rock fans. He can be appealing to Gothic fans, and we got to do a really great tour last year, or 2 years ago, with Marilyn Manson. So, that audience that Marilyn brought to the shows, they were very accepting of Alice, as was Iron Maiden the year before.
That was a great pairing, by the way. And this Motley Crue stuff's a great pairing too. Alice always gets great pairings. He knows. Right? Whoever's booking his stuff knows.
Well, I think it says something about Alice Cooper and the Alice Cooper band itself, is that it appeals to a pretty good spectrum.
Yep.
If we can get on that Foo Fighter tour, now that would really be the icing on the cake now, huh? But hey, let's not don't put the cart before the horse. Like I said, I'm enjoying this ride and this tour and this run with Motley Crue. I had no idea it was going to last 2 years.
I'm looking forward to the Aerosmith Kiss Cheap Trick Alice Cooper tour. That's what I'm holding
Wow,
out.
are you booking that one? I'll buy a ticket.
I'm holding out for that one. And by the way, just going back to Orianti for a minute, I
Yep.
thought she was great in Alice, but honestly, as a fan, I think it's a win-win with her with Richie Sambora because I've seen stuff on YouTube and I've heard songs. Those two just work wonderfully together. I mean, her and Richie are working wonderfully together, and Nita, on the other hand, is working wonderfully with Alice. So, as a fan of both artists, it's win-win. It really
I
is.
think so. I think
Yeah.
so, and that's why I say, with the Alice Cooper band, if things are working, and everybody has opportunities to do other things, and if someone has to go do, just in the same sense that I had gone away from Alice before and done the Sasha Snake Pit record, and the way Damon had gone on and done, Black Star Riders, there are other opportunities that happen. But when we're in this context, and if the chemistry is right with the band, I see no, hopefully, knock on wood, but I see this lineup being able to be the lineup that backs up Alice as long as he wants.
Oh, it really is. It's a great genre, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I know. Listen, Alice is doing this Hollywood vampire stuff, and it's he's left you guys alone for a bit. The chemistry is so right. Would you ever consider being a band and putting something together?
Well, I think that, like I said, Alice is our lead singer, and
Oh,
and even
yes.
though even though we all have our own projects, I think we can always have fun together and jam, and which we do.
Right.
There's certain off nights where the four of us and five of us with Nita, we did it with Orianthi as well. We go and do some one-offs, and I'd sing a couple T-Rex songs, and Chuck Garrick would sing some Motorhead, and Tommy Henriksen would sing some Ramones, and we'd have a really good night of it. We did that a couple times, and then we realized, one night when Alice came up with us, because he was there, he came up and sang like 2 or 3 Alice songs, and we're like, oh, yeah, that's the reason why, because the crowd just went insane over that. So we know what the reality of it is, but we, at the same time, it doesn't stop us from being creative and have a lot of love for playing with each other. So we've been writing, a lot of songs together just to see, what happens. You never know what can happen when and these are things that, maybe another band, an outside band can use, or maybe we can use it in one of our own bands, or maybe, it becomes something even bigger. So we have been creating, we have been sort of recording and having a good time with it in the, in the sense of a hotel room environment.
You could hire Nita, Tommy, Glenn, and Chuck to be the backup band for Roxy 77.
Well, don't tell my guys in Roxy 77 that, because they're already mad enough that I'm in Sweden about one month out of the year anyway.
Right.
But no, like I said, like Chuck has Visto Blanco,
Yep.
and
Great band.
and we all collectively have our own projects that we do, but I think this thing that we do with all of us in the band is something that's unique, and it should remain with Alice always, because it's a special group, I think. I really do. And I know a lot of people say, oh, well, this lineup compared to the original lineup. For me, this Alice Cooper band lineup is the most cohesive unit that I've ever been a part of. As far as ego, balancing with talent, balancing with, character, attitude, it all sort of blends together, and we really do. People say, "Oh, you guys look like you're having a really good time up on stage," and they are 100% right. We are.
I see that too, and I sense it as well. So, if there is writing going on, and Alice is the ultimate Gold, Boss, etc. Uh, are we anywhere near a new Alice Cooper album? And is that even I mean, is that a question I can ask you, or is that something he should
Oh,
answer?
that's good. Well, the thing is, it's more of a question for Alice because he's got a lot of irons in a lot of fires, and he always has, and that's what I respect about him so much, is that, I've learned so much about the music business and how to conduct yourself, in the business area by watching him and with what he does and all his different sort of tangents that he has, his radio career, his golf career, his, the different bands that he collaborates with. Right now, I think Alice, is enjoying doing this tour and having his band that we're, consistently having, a lot of energy every night. But then, he just put out the Hollywood Vampires, which he's proud of as well. And, let's see where that goes. I put my trust in what Alice decides to do with his career because it obviously has worked.
Yeah, just a little bit, I think, right? What are we going on to? Almost 50 years, I guess, right? If you go back to the Nas and Spiders or whatever, it goes back to what, 66, 67? I mean, it's
yeah.
Yeah,
it's before a lot.
Yeah.
It's before some of our band members were born,
which is true.
Before
I was born. Well, let's see. You were born what, 67? Yeah. Well, it's been a while. You mentioned Slash's Snake Pit, which was a fun album, but you also were on Pawn Shop Guitars with Gilby Clarke, which was one of those mid-90s albums that sort of got lost in the shuffle. Tijuana Jail, I still get a kick out of that. Every so often I'll head over to YouTube because I'm too lazy to pull the CD out of the rack.
Well, if you remember way back in our conversation when we started this interview, and I don't know if you're editing it, but it might actually be 2 hours ago.
Right.
The thing is, I mentioned how Gilby Clarke and myself played in a band called Candy,
of course.
And how those two bands split up from Electric Angels to Kill for Thrills. Well, the thing I always say is that you should be cool with whoever you're playing with currently, because they will, one way or another, inevitably lead you to your next project, to your next band. And what happened was, after Gilby was in Guns N' Roses, after Kill for Thrills, in Guns N' Roses, he did his own solo record. So who did he look around for when, the time came for him to put together a touring band? He went back to his old friends in Candy and asked me if I wanted to play. So of course I did. And that started a whole new era with that. And from Gilby Clarke and jamming with him and touring the States with him, we were noticed by Alice Cooper. So you start seeing a pattern here.
Yeah.
And then from Alice Cooper, Slash would come up on stage and guest jam with Alice every night when he was in the same town. And Slash would, inevitably stumble over to my side of the stage, and we ended up playing well off each other. And that became Snake Pit, version 2. So it's amazing how these things all evolved from the people that you originally played with.
Yeah, I think some of the best advice I ever got years ago was be nice to everybody. Just because you never know when, you're going to need them to support you rather than the other way around. So, but that was a great album, and Tijuana Jail and just great playing. Now, of course, we've mentioned Slash, we've mentioned Gilby, and I'm sure you're not getting calls from Axl at any time, but what do you think about all these Guns N' Roses reunion rumors? You think it's even possible? I'm not even asking you if it's going to happen. Do you just think it's a possibility in this world?
I think it's kind of necessary for it to happen, because people need to see that band. People that have heard so much about that band, they need to really see it again. And for the new generations that have never seen it, never experienced it, I think they need to experience it. And I think if they do decide to get together, they'll do it at a high level. It'll be professional. It'll be, hopefully it won't be perfect, because that was always the beauty of Guns N' Roses for me,
Yes.
is that it wasn't perfect. It was rough around the edges, and sometimes it was but ugly, but it definitely had a vibe, and that's what I think. Could it be one of the missing links that hasn't happened yet? There was that grittiness of the rawness of the original Guns N' Roses that I think people want to see. And I think if they decide to get back together again, they'll bring that, and they should bring that to the stage.
Yeah.
But, I've played with Slash long enough to know that, if he says he's going to do it and he does do it, then he'll do it in the best possible way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I would say that of any of them, Duff McKagan is the utmost professional. Slash, I mean, all of them. They're not going to come up there and nickel and dime you. That no way. There's just no way.
No, they'll do it on a high level,
Absolutely.
as they should. Just the same way that, like, Alice Cooper every night brings it. He never takes a night off. Like, people, I get to ask this question a lot. Don't you ever get tired playing, the same songs after, a 2-year tour? You're playing the same set list, or for basically, more or less the same set list. And I said, well, absolutely not. Because I look over my shoulder, I look to my left, and I see a guy that's been doing it 30 more years than I have. And he's doing it with the same passion and the same, aggression as he did when it first started. So if I'm inspiring people when I go out and do my rock and roll parking lot events, and I'm inspiring people to play rock and roll and be inspired by rock and roll, I got a guy, named Alice Cooper that inspires me.
He's incredibly inspirational because, again, like you said, if anybody's going to get bored from playing the set list, it would be him, and he doesn't. He delivers it every night, every time. Mm-hmm. The guy's incredible. And in terms of media, from my perspective, he's one of the nicest guys you could talk to. There's like 3 or 4. David Coverdale, Rob Halford, and Alice. Whenever you speak to them, they will treat you like you've been best friends for the last 15 years or 20 years. Very respectful, very courteous, very nice. They'll answer. You don't need a, rare.
I've always said the
Definitely
mark of a true professional, the mark of a true rock and roll star, is having a conversation with them, and they make you feel like you're the most important person in the room, and if not just as qualified, more qualified to talk to you than they make you feel something special. And the people that don't, and the personalities and rock stars that I've experienced and met that don't make you feel that way, I realize that it's because of their own insecurities, not anything that's wrong with the person that's talking to them.
Right, and I'll add one name to that list from the 80s, Eric Carr, the drummer for Kiss before he passed away.
Eric Carr's a sweetheart.
He, when I met him in those days, I was, 15, 16, 18 kind of thing. And he made me feel like I was the rock star. And I wasn't the rock reporter guy. I was just a fan. And he still made me feel like it was his pleasure to meet me rather than the other way around. And so one of those rare things. Anyway.
Eric Carr was a softball teammate when we did the rock and roll softball games in Hollywood. So yeah, I have good memories of Eric Carr as well.
Good cat. And of course, always a pleasure to speak to you, Ryan. As you know, I've told you many times, my son, Ryan, is named specifically after you, and his middle name is Cooper, named, obviously, after Calico Cooper. No.
Obviously.
Right.
Obviously. Well, congratulations to Calico, too. She just got married, so I want to put that out there as well. Yep. That's pretty cool.
That's very, very cool. So always a pleasure to talk to you. We'll see you in Quebec City soon. and all the best. And of course, folks,
let's leave on your best advice. You know, the advice that you just mentioned earlier, and people haven't taken it in. Take it in one more time. It's like think twice, be nice.
Yeah, be nice.
So before you say anything, just be nice, and good things will happen to you.
And of course, my best advice for everybody is head over to RyanRoxie.com.
I love that. That's the best advice.
That's the best advice.
It doesn't rhyme, though. It doesn't rhyme like mine. Mine rhymes, think twice, be nice. How do you say head on? Oh, no, never mind.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see. Find your moxie at RyanRoxie.com.
You know what? You are now not only, you are a writer. You really have found you've found your door.
My thing. And check out the Roxie box. That's a great, what was that other one? God, there was another album that you had put out. I forget all these.
Well, the newest album is called the Amerisweet EP, and it's out on Bellyache Records. And if you want to check that out, again, RyanRoxie.com has all the links to it. That album is cool because it's come out on vinyl.
But wasn't there what was it called? The one that had 36 Hours and Happy Pill, or no?
That was Happy Pill, which was basically, it was a band called Happy Pill.
That was
a collection of singles. It had 36 Hours and This Year on it. But those you can find on the Roxie box as well.
Right, that's all you need. There you go. Always a pleasure, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Mitch. Have a good one. See you rock and rollers out there. Cheers.
And there you have it, folks. My interview with current Alice Cooper Band guitarist Ryan Roxie. Head over to RyanRoxie.com or Roxie77.com for more. Make sure you pick up that Roxie box set. And do yourself a favor, if you're a fan of rock and roll, find and pick up that first Electric Angels album from the early 90s. Let's keep the show moving along. Heading over now to Vinnie Moore, who played with Alice Cooper in the late 80s, early 90s, even appearing on the Hey Stupid album. He's got a new album himself called Aerial Visions, and you can find out more about Vinnie at VinnieMoore.com. Well, here you go. Here is Vinnie. We are speaking with guitarist Vinnie Moore. The new album is Aerial Visions. Good day, Vinnie.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good.
Talking to you.
Good, pleasure. Boy, I'm interested in this new album because of the process. You've been on record labels your entire life. Now you've decided to do it on your own with Mind's Eye, also the name of your first solo album. And you've gone through Pledge Music. Is that sort of the new way to do things?
Well, the Pledge Music thing is a crowdfunding thing, and that's been working really well for a lot of people. So I was a little reluctant at first to kind of jump in on the crowdfunding thing, but I saw that lots and lots of other people were doing it, and so I thought, Dweezil Zappa's doing it, and Anthrax, and all these other bands. Yeah, it's probably not a bad thing. And it's definitely helped in a lot of ways. But, yeah, I have my own record label. I've always gone through record companies in the past, and I've always kind of thought in the back of my mind about releasing my own records myself. And I almost did it last time with my Truth the Core record, and didn't quite get around to it. But with this one, I finally decided to just go with it.
Yeah, in fact, in 2013, I put together a tribute album that went through Pledge Music to raise money for a cancer hospice, and it really is a pleasurable experience. Those guys at Pledge are very helpful, and they just do a great job. Let me talk to you though about that. When you're with a record company, there are obviously certain pressures. They'll come to you and say, "Well, you need it to sound more this way. It needs to sound more that way." Is that the same thing with your experience, and is it more freeing to do it this way?
In a way, it's more free because of the nature of the music stylistically. I mean, it's instrumental guitar rock to begin with. So, from the very start, we're going against the grain. We're not trying to make like a multi-platinum pop record by any means. So nobody has any pretensions about that. But yeah, in the past, I have dealt with labels trying to, steer me in a particular direction. And that has usually been the kind of thing where they want me to return to something I've done in the past.
Right.
Because I've kind of evolved over the years and shown a lot of different sides of what I do. And some people still like the first record, the first and second record, which were very classically oriented. And so, I've heard from record labels in the past, can you do, more stuff like that? But I've never had anybody try to make me do something I don't really want to do.
All right, now explain this to me. How do you come up with an instrumental record? I mean, at some point, do you not say, "Hey, a couple of vocals would sound great here. Let's." I mean, what makes it a good instrumental record?
Well, I think, with no vocals, you have to have lots of contrast amongst the songs.
Right.
Excuse me, I need the cough button. Yeah, you have to have a lot of contrast and different things going on stylistically. Otherwise, it all starts to sound the same.
Right.
So I always try to mix things up a lot, and a lot of different feels, a lot of different moods, and just a lot of things musically going on, just to take you to different places.
Now, yeah, I was just going to say, To the Core was released in 2009. It's been 6 years. Why the delay? Is it just because UFO keeps you so busy?
Yeah, I've been on the road a lot. That's the main thing. And the other thing is I'm just kind of perfectionist and a little OCD, and I'll just take forever doing things. And that's kind of one of my main faults, but one of my greatest strengths at the same time. It's kind of a weird thing. Sometimes I just need to say, hey, this is finished. Let's be done with it already. But, there's another side of me that will just keep working and experimenting and coming up with new things forever. And I just get to the point where I have to kind of edit and censor myself.
You also, now, was the album something that you've come up with all this year, or are these songs that you sort of collected over the last 6 years and said, okay, let me put that on the shelf and we'll get back to it when it's time?
They're just some songs I've collected over the years. Okay. And I write a lot. I'm always writing, and unfortunately, I write more than the amount of records I can actually make. So that's been a problem where I just have so much stuff laying around.
Have you thought, do you sell these songs off to other artists? Do you call up, Alice Cooper, from the Hey Stupid days and say, hey, listen, I've got this great track that would be perfect for you?
No, one of the hopes I had when I first joined his band was that we someday could write together. I mean, when I joined, they had a new record coming out, so I just played on the tour, but I thought this could really be cool. It could lead to us writing together, but, I just could tell that wasn't going to happen. But
yeah, go ahead. Tell me about the Alice Cooper experience. I'm probably what we would call a diehard Alice Cooper fan. I think he's just fantastic. But I do know that a lot of the touring musicians don't end up on the albums for some reason. Was that something that you sort of encountered? I mean, you only did, 2 tracks on Hey Stupid?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't initially supposed to be in the band. They were having a lot of guitar players guest on the record, like Slash and Steve Vai and Joe Satriani, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the guys they asked, to make a guest appearance. So I drove up to Bearsville Studio in Bearsville, New York, one snowy February day, and just spent the day in the studio recording those 2 songs. And I thought that was pretty much it. But a couple months after that, I was asked to join the band for the touring. And I was really gung-ho about it because I was always an Alice fan back in the day, too.
Yeah, that's great. Now, when you get into, and I'll get off Alice in a second, but when you get into the Hey Stupid situation, and you're a shredder, do they say, hey, listen, you got to bring it back to sort of that 70s guitar sound, or do they say to you, hey, take it to that next level, let's make it sort of 1990s?
There wasn't a whole lot of guideline, actually, as far as that goes. I mean, I don't think they would want anybody to come in and play like somebody from 1970. That just wouldn't quite work. Something has to be current,
right?
Or there's no point in doing it. So yeah, they were pretty free with that kind of stuff.
UFO released A Conspiracy of Stars this year. How do you decide, of all the songs you write, what sticks around and it goes to Aerial Visions, and what goes, this is a UFO riff, this goes to the band? Is there a process, or is it just I mean, how does that work?
Usually I'm pretty aware of it right up front, what I'm writing. And when we did A Conspiracy of Stars, I just sat down and started writing some songs for it. So everything was pretty new. And basically what we'll do is we'll feed songs to Phil, and he'll listen to things and kind of decide what he is inspired by and what he likes the best. And then he'll write lyrics to those. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a certain type of song that I write that's going to fit UFO, where some of the instrumental stuff just isn't going to do it. It might be too progressive or too melodic, whatever.
Yeah, and of course UFO is one of these bands that just have had a great amount of classic musicians. I mean, Michael Schenker and Bernie Marsden. Again, is that also a situation where the band says, okay, you need to copy these guys, or do they say you're pretty much free to do what you feel is right?
Pretty much told me what I feel is right. I mean, Phil wanted me to come in and do my own thing.
Right.
He was looking for a guy who was also a songwriter, because that's what the previous guitar players had done, and he just wanted me to contribute with my songs and just play the way I play. If you're just trying to emulate somebody else from the past, then it starts to be like a cover band.
Right. Yeah, and you definitely don't want that. The band's going out on tour later this year with Judas Priest. Tell me a little bit about that package. I mean, that's a great package.
Oh, okay. Well, first we do 3 or 4 weeks in Europe starting on October 23rd. And then after that, we have about 10 shows with Priest over in Scandinavia, Europe, kind of all over the map over there in Europe. And, basically, I mean, we've done a gig with them before in Italy. And I remember at the time, Glenn talking to Phil and saying, yeah, we should tour together at some point. And those guys have known each other for years and years. And I think they toured together probably way back in the 70s or 80s. I'm not really sure. But basically, they just asked us if we wanted to do it.
Yeah, not a bad gig to get. It's going to be interesting because musically, I think it's very different. I mean, Priest is definitely heavy metal, and UFO, I would probably, I guess it's fair to say, lean it more towards the progressive, right? So it's certainly going to be an interesting evening of music.
I think UFO is more rock, hard rock, classic rock, and those guys are more metal.
Right.
But UFO touches on the metal stuff too. But I think that's a great thing whenever you have a package that it doesn't sound that the bands aren't exactly the same. There's some different stuff going on, and that makes for a more exciting concert, in my opinion.
Yeah, it really does. Back to Aerial Visions. The album comes out at the end of October. Will there be a tour to support it? You recently toured with Uli John Roth. Will there be more shows coming up?
We're looking at doing shows starting around January 15th. And I'm playing on the Monsters of Rock cruise at the end of February.
Oh, great.
And we'll probably go up until that. So, from January 15th until the end of February when that cruise ends. And then from that point, the UFO stuff starts again next March. So, yeah, I'm going to be quite busy again next year.
It never ends. Now, is the tour going to be with Uli, the one in January?
No, at this point, it's just me as a solo artist in America.
Right.
And I'd like to play with Uli again someday. That was a lot of fun, and I think it's a good pairing.
Yes,
I like his playing a lot and like him as a person, so I think that would be a cool thing to do at some point in the future, but at this time, it's not working out that way.
Yeah, well, I certainly hope it does work out that way. Your early records were on Shrapnel. Shrapnel is a legendary label put together by Mike Varney. He basically had a hand in discovering you and bringing you to the forefront. Talk to me a little bit about Mike Varney and how important he and his label are to the sort of guitar scene.
I think he helped out a lot. A lot of guys who probably would have never gotten any recognition, that came from small towns all over America, all over the world, really. And I think his idea of doing that column in Guitar Player magazine, the spotlight for new talent, was pretty much genius. I mean, he knew there was like a hot guitar player in most towns, around the world, and that were unrecognized. And he thought, if I give them the medium to spotlight what they do, it could be a really cool thing. And once he started doing that, he also started his own label, and he was signing a lot of guys he was writing about, because they were just undiscovered players from all over the place. And I think he really helped me out a great deal and helped many others out a great deal.
Yeah, he really did. Mike's great. UFO, the last album, of course, came out this year. Is there work on a follow-up at this point, or are we still just in the touring cycle?
We're still in the touring cycle. I mean, we never have talked about a new record yet, but I'm sure it's in the back of everyone's mind. Because it always is. That's always the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those bands that you just can't go away. We got to have more, right? It got to keep moving all the time.
Exactly, as long as possible. I mean, since I've been in the band, it's been a steady train, always moving, doing a new record and then touring a lot and then back to a new record and just cycle after cycle. And that's one of the good things. We've really kept it moving.
You really have, and I'm glad. Hopefully, I don't think UFO gets over to Canada and to North America as much as they should, quite frankly.
Yeah, I agree with you. We did Canada a couple times, maybe last year or the year before, and there's been a lot of U.S. tours, but it just seems like a lot of our tours are over in Europe. But we are supposed to come to America next year, I think in March.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to it. St. Jude's Hospital, Children's Research Hospital, is where 10% of the Pledge Music funds go. How did you choose St. Jude's? Is there a personal story that's connected to it?
No, it's just the place I've always donated money to. And to be frank with you, even if the Pledge Music thing wasn't happening, I'd be donating anyway. So hopefully I can donate even more. Yeah, I've always had like a kind of a soft spot for kids. And, when you see sick kids, it's just so sad. And, just want to do every little thing I can do to help.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's very commendable. I mean, again, like I said, when I did that Pledge Music thing, we ended up raising $30,000 for this hospice, and it is part of the Pledge Music campaigns that I find interesting, that there is this charity component to it, so that you get good music and you do something good at the same time.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's really good. Now, the next album, after Aerial Visions, do you wait 6 years, or is it something like, all right, we got to get back on let's do 2-year kind of thing?
Definitely not 6 years, man. I'm getting too old.
Right.
There's not that much time left. What I'm thinking now, and who knows, in 2 years, in a year from now, I might feel totally different. But I'm thinking I might not even want to make another entire instrumental record again. That maybe I'll just start doing singles and just selling them digitally.
Right.
On iTunes and the online places.
Amazon and all that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure I'm going to make another instrumental record after this, but I know there will at least be some songs, maybe in batches of 2 or 3. I have some material already ready, actually. I'll have to record it, but I've written it. And, I have a lot of vocal songs also, and I'd like to get a vocal band together, too.
Ah, interesting. Who would the vocal band be with you? Like, who would be the guys you would like to have, if you could have anybody in your band to come and sing on the songs?
Oh, man, that's so hard to say. I'd want Chris Cornell, but that ain't going to happen.
Yeah, he's great.
No, but, just a guy who has a unique sound, but is also a good writer. I'm looking for a partner type of thing.
Yeah, that would be great. Vinnie, this has been great. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, man. Great to talk to you, and I totally appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, folks should definitely go over to Pledge Music and check out Aerial Visions. There's still time to pledge and get some goodies at the same time.
Right, and the record comes out on October 23rd, and it'll be available digitally, so you should be able to get it at iTunes or hard copies anywhere. You usually get them, Amazon.com or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, Amazon, iTunes, well, okay, Google Store now. It's sort of everywhere, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Since we're talking about that, we're just real quick. What's your thought on streaming? Is the song is the album going to be on Spotify and on Deezer and all those streaming sites? And is that something that's sort of positive or negative for you?
Man, I don't know what to make of it at this point. There's been so much talk about it, and I don't really know where it's going. And I don't know if anybody knows where it's going. It's going to be interesting to see how things unfold. But it seems to be the norm, so I guess, I should put my stuff up on there too, because maybe some people will discover it who normally wouldn't have discovered it.
Right. You see, that's the catch, right? If it's up there, the financial benefit is maybe not as great as selling a CD, but on the same token, somebody might not find it if it's not on there. So, right, that's the catch.
Exactly.
Uh, yeah, you don't know what to do, but there you go. Vinny, great pleasure, and let's do this again after the album comes out. Maybe we'll talk about the UFO tour at length when you hit the road with Judas Priest in later this year.
Sounds great, man. Thank you.
Thank you. And there you have it, folks. My interview with former Alice Cooper guitarist Vinnie Moore, currently plugging his new Aerial Visions album. That made it a 2-for-1 Alice Cooper guitarist special. We had Ryan Roxie up front. Big thank you to Ryan. Big thank you to Vinnie. Please check them out at ryanroxie.com and also vinniemore.com. And as always, folks, head over to iTunes. Leave me a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. Thanks again, and bye for now.